Hello, and welcome to my channel, Anna the Wolf. And as we all know, wolves are natural-born storytellers, and I'm from a long line of storytellers. Today, I want to share a story with you that's really amazing because it's actually about you, and this is how we met. So I hope as you hear more about this story that you'll recognize deep in that part of you that understands truth, that you'll like, share, and subscribe to this channel as it grows and each chapter unfolds. So what happened was, on a day like this, a dark, stormy, drippy day, I looked out the window, and under that tree, that enormous black walnut tree behind me, that has lost all of its leaves for the winter, at the very base of the tree, I looked and saw you, sitting there with your back up against the tree, pressed into the bark, trying to stay warm, to no avail because it's quite stormy. And as I watched, I noticed that you'd arrived there somehow. Unbeknownst to you, you weren't clothed in winter clothing, you didn't have socks on, you certainly didn't have a blanket with you or an umbrella. It was just you, in just the thinnest of clothing, pressed up against a tree for shelter. And I thought, how on earth did you end up there? So I stepped away because I wanted to offer you some privacy, and it didn't seem right for a wolf to be watching from the shadows. It's at this point in time that your fingers reached down into the cold, bare earth and dug deeper and deeper into the soil. They'd become roots, and as they traveled down into the depths of the soil beneath the tree, you became complacent in one place. There, you with a tree, becoming a tree, and you sat observing all that went around you, and up walked out of the edge of the forest a fox, and it sat on a stump next to you and just watched. Somewhat like I had watched, but foxes aren't nearly as good at allowing for privacy. And so the fox eventually spoke to you in his own fox language that thankfully you understood, being tree at this point. And he tilted his head and said, "Why have you put your roots only in the ground?" And you thought, because that's where roots go, only in the ground. That's the only direction I've ever grown. And the fox shook his head and said, well, you can't possibly move from that place with your fingers in the ground. And you thought to yourself, well, there's no other way to do it. That's just how roots grow. But the fox had a glint in his eye, and as you watched and he tilted his head back and forth, you realized something about that glint, that it was a reflection of you. In his eye, there was a reflection coming straight from the center of yourself. There was a little glinting glow, and it didn't belong to the fox's eye at all. It belonged to you. You sat with that knowledge for a moment, feeling just a bit warmer in that, even though the rain was still falling and the leaves were still gone, you recognized that there was a glow in you. And the fox said, have you tried pulling your fingers up recently? You said, no, I've never tried to move them. I'm stuck. Can't you see I'm firmly rooted in this place? The fox shook his head and said, oh, my dear, pull your fingers up and wrap them about yourself. because your roots are meant to be with you always. Not in one place, but in every place. And so you pulled up your fingers and wrapped them about you, and somehow they nestled so neatly around you that the roots wrapped your body, and the glow could still be seen emanating from between them. And you stood up and shook off the rain that had been totally drenching you, and you flung open your arms and you grabbed the fox and you hugged it, because you'd been sitting there, perhaps, dare I say, for years. The fox, being clever, said, "You know what? I know of a place that we can go that's just right. It's warm, it's cozy, and it's dry, and it happens to be my den. Why don't you follow me?" And so you, being the adventuresome sort, thought, why not? Why not follow you into the woods? Sounds like a great plan. And although you did have some trepidation, honestly, who wouldn't? I can't blame you. You began following the fox into the woods. And I have to say, I admire you for that. I really admire how your roots look all about you. And I really admire your story. And I can't wait for you to come back and hear the next chapter. But for now, I just want to thank you for being here at my channel about transformation through story. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.